All right, let me pull up my screen here, and then we will get into it. All right, there we go. Are we all good? We can see what I got on the screen.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, welcome to Case Studies Club. Thank you so much for coming and showing up. I'm going to go through just kind of a quick kind of rules of the road. I know most of the people have been here, but whatever. It's good to kind of go through these things. And then we'll get into the discussion. So first thing first, so we'll do about a 5 to 6-ish minute kind of video overview. So if you didn't read the case and you're coming in kind of hot, don't worry about it. We'll watch the refresher video to get everybody caught up to speed. After that, we'll do about 35-ish kind of minutes of discussion. If you can raise your hand to queue, that's super helpful. That way I kind of go in order and call on people. Please don't feel like you got to wait for me to jump in to say something. I've got questions written down that I can kind of prompt and get into some discussion. But if there are things that you want to talk about on this case, please feel free to jump in as early as you can or as you like. I guess we also try to kind of keep it informal. So if you want to, the hand raise is great, but if you want to just kind of jump in, that's not a problem too. Lastly, the last 10 minutes, we'll jump into talking about next week's case, and I'll actually try to have you guys help me figure out what to talk about for next week's case. And I guess the last thing, if you'd like to share your info or your website or anything like that, while we don't do kind of formal networking, this is kind of an informal networking. So if you hear somebody say something interesting, you can grab their info. So I shot my LinkedIn in the chat. Feel free to do the same. All right, so I'm going to bump over to our case, which is called The Fog of War, which is not about war, but that was the title. So I'll play this. Just give me a thumbs up if you can hear the sound. And again, it's about six-ish minutes.
All right, let's jump right in. We're going to talk about a company that on the surface looks like the picture of success. I mean, they're stable, they're reliable, but inside, the leadership is totally lost. They can't even agree on whether they're winning, losing, or just, stuck. It's a perfect example of what you might call strategic fog. This whole mess really boils down to one simple but really powerful question. Think about it. If you're playing a high-stakes game, how do you even know what your next move should be? Well, if you can't see the scoreboard, right? Every single play is just a guess. And that is exactly the problem facing this company, Precision Components Manufacturing, or PCM for short. They've got tons of data, sure, but no clear score. Nothing to tell them if they're actually winning or losing the game. And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? It's like trying to navigate through thick fog with a compass that only points backward. I mean, think about that. They have all this historical data, years of it, telling them exactly where they've been, but it gives them zero clarity on where they are right now, let alone where the market is going. It's like all their tools are stuck in the past. Okay, so let's dig into PCM a little bit more. From the outside looking in, these guys are a model of success. They've built this incredibly solid business in what seems like the perfect niche. But here's the twist. That very success, well, that's what makes their current problems so incredibly dangerous. Yeah, for 20 years, PCM has been living in this sweet spot, what you might call the Goldilocks zone. The parts they make are complex enough that you need real know-how, but they're not so hyper-specialized that their customers are totally locked in. For a long time, this was their secret sauce, their biggest strength. But now, it's looking like it might be the very source of all their problems. See, for years, if you looked at their internal dashboard, everything was great. All green lights. Efficiency was up, customer complaints were way down. It looked perfect. But then, the outside world started sending these weird signals, things that their internal numbers just couldn't explain at all. And this wasn't some sudden explosion, It was this slow, creeping issue. First, revenue growth just flattened out. Then you saw the margins start to get squeezed. And finally, the sales pipeline just started to sputter. Look, any one of these on its own might not be a huge deal, but when you put them all together, it starts to paint a really troubling picture. And then came the moment that changed everything. The real wake-up call. It was just a casual comment from a customer, but it revealed this massive strategic threat that PCM was completely blind to. Suddenly, they're asking themselves, wait, are other customers talking about this? Are we a key partner? Or are we just a backup supplier, one bad quarter away from getting cut? And the scary part, they had absolutely no idea. So, all of this tension, all this uncertainty, it finally comes to a head in one big strategic meeting. The entire leadership team gets in a room to figure out the path forward, only to discover they aren't just on different pages, they're looking at completely different maps. And this right here is the heart of the problem. You've got the CFO looking at the stable finances, and he's saying, let's defend our position. Then you have the VP of sales looking at the sputtering pipeline saying, no, we need to attack. And the COO, she sees the whole market shifting and says, we have to reposition entirely. I mean, you have three incredibly smart people all looking at the same company data, and they come to three completely different, contradictory conclusions. That's not just disagreement, that's strategic paralysis. So they had this big aha moment. They realized their problem wasn't choosing between defend, attack, or reposition. Their real problem was that they didn't have the right information to make any choice at all. They needed what we can call diagnostic intelligence. See, that's not just data that tells you what happened yesterday, it's information that explains why things are happening right now. So they came up with 4 potential ways to get that intelligence. Okay, so the first path that they considered, go straight to the source. Talk to the customers. And I don't just mean a quick chat with the purchasing guy. We're talking deep, serious interviews with the executives, the decision makers. The whole point is to figure out how customers really see them. It's super direct, you get actionable info, but man, it's also expensive, time-consuming, and it all hinges on whether your customers are going to be honest with you. And this path leads to a really brutal question they'd have to face. What if you find out you're not the star quarterback everyone thinks you are? What if, to your customers, you're just the reliable backup? So what do? Do you spend a ton of money trying to fight for that starting spot? Or do you lean into it and focus on becoming the absolute best, most reliable backup supplier in the entire industry? All right, path number 2 is totally different. It's about zooming out and studying the entire battlefield. This means bringing in the pros, hiring outside firms to analyze your competitors, map out the whole market. Because think about it, flat revenue feels one way if the whole market is down, but it feels a lot worse if the market is booming and you're the only one getting left behind. So this gives you that vital context, but it doesn't really tell you why customers are making the choices they're making. Yeah, this approach really forces you to look at the market structure. Are you a high-end specialist or a low-cost generalist? Because if the market is splitting into those two extremes, then being stuck in the middle, that Goldilocks zone that used to be your strength, all of a sudden it's the most dangerous place you can possibly be. Okay, path 3 is all about looking inward. The idea here is that the answers are already sitting right there, buried deep inside their own sales data, their own operational numbers. They just need the right tools, the right shovel, if you will, to dig them up. It's about finding those hidden patterns in the mountains of data they already have. Super powerful, for sure. But the big risk is that you can become totally blind to what's happening outside your own 4 walls. And this one brings up a huge cultural challenge. The data might tell you something you really don't want to hear, like that product line you're so proud of, it's losing money. Or that customer you've been serving for a decade, they're not profitable anymore. So the real question isn't just, can you find the truth in the data? It's, is your company tough enough to actually handle that truth? The fourth and final path is a bit different. It's less about spreadsheets and algorithms and more about human wisdom. The idea is to build a strategic advisory board. Get a group of seasoned industry veterans, retired execs, top-tier consultants, and have them in your corner. They can offer incredibly rich, nuanced advice. The downside, it's slow, and its success depends almost entirely on picking the exact right people. But this option comes with a massive psychological trap. It's called confirmation bias. It's just so easy to hire advisors who will tell you what you already believe, to only hear the advice that confirms your existing ideas. The real trick here is making sure these experts are there to challenge your assumptions, not just pat you on the back and reinforce them. And that leaves PCM, and really any of us in business, with one last critical question. Look, each of these 4 paths cost real money and takes real time. But what's the hidden cost of staying in the fog? What's the price you pay for making big bets based on bad information? The decision here isn't just about which path to choose. It's about whether you're willing to pay what it takes to finally, truly see the scoreboard.
All right, I got to figure out how to make this a little less long-winded, but I guess the question that I wrote down as the video was going was maybe before jumping into like what the right solution is. I guess my question is like what are we trying to figure out? I wrote, the first thing that I wrote down was like, okay, revenues flattened, margins squeezed, new customer growth had slowed, like, so, and then we're talking about like, okay, we need to there's some data sources and there's some different people that we could assign to, collect that data or whatever. But then I'm still a little bit lost at like, well, what are we trying? Are we trying to figure out like why revenue flattened and why margin squeezed and why growth slowed? Or do we care about the why and we're just trying to figure out what to do? Or like, what's the goal maybe? Daniel, I'm so happy you raised your hand because you were obviously the inspiration.
The way I see this is that it's just, those are the symptoms, right? But if you don't know what you're trying to figure out what the disease is, because you can't address the symptoms unless you know what's causing them. So by themselves, they don't tell you what are the greater forces at play, and now you need to discover those. That's
so I mean, so you're saying that we are trying to answer why.
Yes.
Why revenue flattened? Why margins?
Yes. There's got to be a whole like something going on, either on the market or within the company, or a combination of things that is causing these things to happen, right? There's pieces of data that look like symptoms of a disease, but until you figured out what is the disease, it's hard to cure it.
Okay. Yeah, Gary, you're muted. Oh no, you're not. Wow, look at that. Awesome.
Okay. One of the things that jumps out at me, and it's not necessarily what your ultimate goal is, but I believe it's relevant operationally. So most of my experience is startup leadership, particularly early stage companies. So we don't tend to have these kind of complexities, but I did start my career in bigger companies, and through acquisitions, I've worked at bigger companies. And one of the things that jumps out to me is that the discussion seems to be trying to find a single thread to grab hold of and pursue, whereas you probably have to pay attention to at least 2 or 3 threads at the same time because of the complexity of what's going on. And this sounds like a larger, more mature company.
Can you give me an example of like what threads you're talking about?
Right. So there is the strategic thread here of what should be the new goal that the company is investing to achieve. However, my concern is that, because I'm very operationally oriented, is that you also need to start becoming as efficient as you can at what your current business is to facilitate the transition. You can't stop doing your old business if you rely on it to fund the investment that you're going to do.
It only goes this loud.
Keep going,
in this new goal. So the 2 threads are, one, maintaining your existing business, ideally becoming more efficient at it, more effective at it, and ensuring that it's generating good free cash flow, as well as making the decision about what the new overall strategic goal of the company is.
Okay, so that sounds like pretty holistic, I guess. Is that
right? As I said, this is not probably the answer that you were looking for necessarily, but operationally, I'm just making a point.
I'm not necessarily looking for an answer. I guess so. The way it breaks down in my head, and maybe the reason I asked the question, and Daniel almost started with like, okay, like we need to investigate the why. You kind of feel like holistic to me, a very holistic approach. Like my other question would be like, well, does anybody think that the why matter? Maybe there's somebody on here that doesn't think the why matters, and it's like, no. Like revenue has flattened, margins have been squeezed, new customer growth is slowed. That's the new reality. We need to look forward. And, there might be those types of people that think that is, makes it more sense. So yeah, again, I'm not, it's not necessarily I'm looking for an answer. I'm more poking and prodding and, seeing how people think about these different things. Yeah, Linda.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm in sales. So bottom line, that's what you're always trying to do is figure out your sales growth. What have you done? What are you doing to go forward? And I understand that you got to take it all in consideration. But what my opinion is, you can't just deep dive into one area. I agree with the gentleman who was just talking. I wasn't paying attention to your name. I'm so sorry. Gary. That you have to do a little bit of talk to customers. You have to do a little bit of zooming out and seeing the big picture. You have to do a little bit of everything. But bottom line, I'm assuming there's shareholders or there's the profit, board of directors. They want to know, why aren't sales up? Why are you flatlining? Why are you going backwards? So basically, that's what I think you have to take all of it in consideration quickly. You can't just hang out in one place for very long.
Okay. Todd, what do you got?
Yeah, just to echo what Linda and Gary said, I think, and to your point, it's two sides of the same coin. Why is revenue slowing and sales are down versus why, like, what should you do next? I think those are answering a similar question. Why isn't what we're doing working? What would work better? Whether it's doing what we were doing better or doing something else. I think it is touching on both things. I also agree that focusing on sales, while I think looking at operations, as Gary mentioned, is a good idea, a lot of my experience is an over concentration on cutting costs versus focusing on how do we increase sales. And then the last point I wanted to make is, in the video, it seemed like it was pick one, and I agree that it's probably pick three. I think they should be talking to their customers. They should be doing some market research, whether that's themselves or hiring someone else to do it, and looking at their own data, and specifically leading indicators, because I think from the information that we were presented, they're lacking leading indicators. Otherwise, they would have kind of seen this trend coming and would have reacted sooner.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
David, what do you got?
Yeah, I'd just like to echo what everyone else has said, but with a little bit different emphasis. I look at corporate culture. I mean, why did they get blindsided to begin with?
I guess that's that's the why. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're saying, so, why did they get blindsided? Not necessarily why is revenue flattened.
Why didn't they have this thing integrated?
Got it. So you're looking to fire somebody.
Not necessarily, but at least change mindsets.
Okay.
Because the people do have experience, obviously, and they've kept it going. But I mean, if they can't make the switch to a corporate culture where this is actually all this that we're talking about is integrated into it, then maybe, somebody does need to be fired. Yeah, I'd say look at corporate culture.
Yeah,
And
okay.
how did they get to a place to where all of a sudden they're surprised after,
Okay. I guess just to maybe press on that, what I feel like that I agree with that. Like you do need to accountability is important. It feels like it's secondary to me. Like
there was something very simple in the case study.
Yeah.
Basically, it said if you're flat in a declining market, you're actually winning. So there may not be a problem here. You need to figure out the why. If the market is declining and you're maintaining, flat, that means you're gaining share.
Sure.
But so that's why, these questions need to be answered. It's
okay.
That's what I would look at, the whole market, actually. I would be the second solution more than anything.
Okay, that's a good. I like that if you're flat in a declining market, you're gaining share. That's a good takeaway for me personally. I'm gonna go Christian and then Steve. I see you got your hand up, and then we'll go Gary. But Christian, what do you have for us?
Well, I mean, to me, there's a sense of deja vu because I feel like I've lived through this before. The three executives, they're all right. I mean, the fundamentals as seen by the CFO, they haven't changed. And for what they do, they're great. The operations officer, they're getting a feeling like the market's shifting. And there's a reason why an operations person doing what they do and staying abreast of what's best in class might get the feeling that the world is shifting on them because they're paying attention to what other people are doing and other peers are doing, and it's changing on them. And the salespeople are coming back and they're seeing exactly the same thing as kind of the operations person as, customers are changing a little bit. Coming from sales, which is where I've been in long periods of time, a sales strategy, you should always have recommendations coming from your clients. And if those recommendations are drying up, the salespeople should be finding out why. And probably the why is, and what I've seen is, expert craftsmen, whether it's decades or centuries, they're replaced by automation at some point in time, unless the product is specific to craftsmanship.
Yeah.
So, like most watches aren't made by individual craftsmen unless you're building a Rolex. But everybody else, it's stamped parts and the like, and it's some sort of automation. This just reeked of, they're getting, the fourth thing where the market is completely changing on them and they're just in the wrong spot.
Okay.
So anyways, my 2 cents.
No, it's great. Let's go Steve and then we'll go Gary and then I'm going to bump into another discussion topic.
I think I agree with the last comments on this. Bryce, I don't think this company understands where they are in the overall supply chain. I do believe they have been, a solid manufacturer, high quality numbers, reasonable price controls, efficient, responsive in the market and stuff like that. But I think something's shifting out there is their position in the marketplace, because they do talk about consolidation of suppliers, not only in one, but several of their customers. And what's going on here, I think, is that the head of the value chain is basically, consolidating their supply base and basically, pushing it into second tier suppliers to basically accumulate the parts from this supplier as well as others. So I would, suggest that would be a very key information that they could see out there, and it probably would be a combination of, when they say talk to their customer, is it their direct customer? Because I don't think they're a first tier supplier right now. They sound like, and I'm sure they were at one time.
Yeah, I mean they're told that they're people's second choice. So
yeah, and so the pressure gets then put on that first tier supplier who they're maybe not used to dealing with, and they may already have their favorite, supplier of that. So that I think the supply chain shifting around them.
Okay. Gary.
Yes, and the thing you've got to wonder is, as this consolidation or end of market starts playing out, is do their customers remain the same?
Right.
When you're looking for your new strategic direction, is your direction, because it's very hard to change customers. It implies a lot.
Yeah.
And the question is what can they do to optimize the relationship with their existing customers, or do they figure out a way to make a transition to a new customer, which is extremely risky and expensive?
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So I think we framed, like, there's a why question that needs to be answered. Maybe, it's an important question that isn't answered in this case that we need to go answer. I wanted to dig into, like, the strategic options, and the way I interpreted this, or my kind of two takes. So we're, the question that this case asks down wherever, what I can't, the question it's asked is like, what's the first choice, or that, what's the best source of information, basically, something like that. I guess the way that I kind of broke it down, it felt like there were two questions sort of being answered in these. And it was one, I felt it was like, what type of information? And then the second question was, who should be gathering it? I felt like those were two distinct choices. So I wrote down, and this was in corresponding to the options, that basically option 1 was to get customer information. Option 2 was to get competitor information. Option 3 was to get efficiency or internal information. And option 4 was related to the industry and getting industry information. And then the kind of different groups they talked about were either, consulting, internal resources, or hiring another, an internal resource. And then potentially, I kind of said this for the fourth option, was really thinking about quote unquote free resources. They position this as like the board, essentially. And to me, that I put that in like the free bucket. At least that's how I conceptualized it. I'm interested if you guys kind of broke it down similarly into like, hey, there's these sources and who the people are, or if you thought about it differently, and if you thought about, maybe what those data sources were. Anything in there that kind of, either was in line with how you thought about these, or maybe differed. Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, I felt the customer is always right, so they say. So go there. Just go straight to the customer and find out.
Okay.
That's the no-brainer. Who do you ask first? The customer.
Okay.
Not yourself.
And if you went to a customer, what question would you ask the customer?
Yeah. I haven't framed that yet, so I'll get back to you, man.
Okay. Would it be, well, maybe, would it be like, why aren't you buying from me anymore?
That's a good start. Yeah. Why are you a former customer?
Okay.
Okay.
What can I do for you that I'm not currently doing?
Okay.
Yeah.
This is all kind of lagging where they're at.
Well, this is where you need to add, if you don't understand the big picture, right? The industry,
Right.
this is where your customers can help you understand. They're each going to have a perspective on why they're doing things differently, why their competitors might be doing things differently, why they might be consolidating suppliers. You need to ask general questions. And I don't think that the salespeople are necessarily the only ones that should do this, or even the prime. I think operations people should do this. In my experience, salespeople have a very, I don't know, they don't necessarily understand the big picture, the technology, the implications behind it. So you need some technology, especially if it's a technology heavy industry, to get that big picture and where things are going. I mean, that's why you read the industry journals and so on, right? But going to your customers, going to their operations people, going to their CEO, finding out, building a partnership with them. If you have partnership with your customers, you should be getting appraised of this information all the time, and you wouldn't have been caught flat-footed.
Daniel, I was just about to go there. I was about to say, I have a sense that you feel like this is just ongoing doing business, basically, that like you should always be, this is information that you just need to know on an ongoing basis. Yeah?
Yes. Yes.
And that like essentially you shouldn't be caught flat-footed. Yeah?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think the question is, well, what happens when you are caught flat-footed?
Well, you catch up.
They've probably been ignoring or paralyzed, and the world has caught up and taken away their leading position.
Yeah. Okay. Todd, what did you have on this one?
Yeah, I think for me, it always goes back to the fundamentals. Like if this is the state of the company, then the problem that you were solving, something's changed. Either you're not solving it as well, it's not as painful for the customers, they found a better solution, or it's not a problem anymore. And maybe there's some other options in there. But there's something about how the problem is being solved, about the nature of the problem, that has shifted from where it was. And that's what everyone needs to be asking. Sales needs to be asking the customers about those whys. What happened to the problem? Market researchers need to say, is this still a problem? How big is the problem? Is it declining? Is there a new problem that we could tackle?
Yeah.
Like those types of things you're not going to get looking internally. You do have to look externally. And I agree, talking to customers is vital. You should do it all the time. But in this particular case, something about the problem and your solution to the problem has shifted, and that's where you need to invest your time to uncover it.
You know, I mean, this is obvious. This is a case study, so it's, you know, we're given the information we're given. I think in some respect, I feel like the question on these types of things is, like, clearly, if you could do all of them at the same time, like, you know, you would, like, get out there, do everybody do everything. I think, you know, in some respect, it's like, from a CEO standpoint, I'm asking the question, like, is this a 5-alarm fire? Like, because if it isn't, turning a 1-alarm fire into a 5-alarm fire is it's also a problem. Like, you also got to be careful of, like, you know, throwing too much gasoline on the thing and having this turn into you know, something that, like, you know, I mean I can't remember who said it anymore, but, like, yeah, maybe it's just the market's declining and, like, yeah, we're gaining market share, so in some respect maybe it is what it is. I don't know. Anyway. David, what do you got?
Well, I agree with you. I'm not really a reactionary person, or try not to be. You know, I would say it's not a 5-alarm fire. If they still have growth, and, you know, like who is it? Daniel was saying earlier, you know, they're being flat in a declining market, but still, like, the best defense is a good offense, is what I always say. Like, if you're going to put the effort in change, don't be reactive, you know. Do a market analysis. It's probably not going to cost you a lot more. Like, I would, if I had to pick one of those, I would just find out, where is the market going? Be blue ocean minded more than you are reactionary minded, and try to keep your little stake in the ground and hang on to the market share that you have.
Okay. Christian.
Yeah, I just going back to kind of we've got 4 options, and in some ways it's kind of written as an academic exercise where it's 4, you know, in reality you do a mixture of all 4 options, and in some ways in reality it's like, why don't they have an advisory board? Why aren't they using the data that they collect intelligently to begin with? So I mean, in some ways those 2 options I look at as, well, that's saying obviously something's happening outside of the company that's you know, that's causing their flat things, because the CFO, again, said nothing internally is really, it's not like their internal costs went up per se or stuff like that. If it was internal, something internal leaning, the CFO would have been the first one to kind of go, wait a minute, what's going on? Whereas this is obviously coming from the outside in. And if you have to pick between a market research report, full blown, go out there, or just speaking with your clients, I've seen maybe a half dozen to a dozen market research reports that have been commissioned by employers or with industry. I've yet to see one that ever came up with, oh, they're screwed because there's a declining market. They all paint rosy pictures about,
Yeah, that
growth.
consulting company needs to get another contract, right?
I would love to get what did the market report look like for buggy whips in, the turn of the 19th century?
It's going to be a banner year, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Look at markets like payphones, right? When people realized that mobile phones were going to replace payphones, there was 3 companies that focused on end of life for payphones. And this happens in markets all the time. And eventually they go away or they get acquired and shut down.
I just came out of an industry for lipid nanoparticles for early kind of clinical studies. And, at the beginning of COVID, there were a few people that could make them reliably. And by 2024, you had machines making them in mass that could just be made for the initial clinical. So a whole series of CDMOs are going under because that market's gone. And, there's been plenty of other case studies where, again, I went back to, craftsmanship or people highly skilled at a certain task. Eventually they're replaced by some sort of automation.
Let me just tweak the question again. Then maybe the question is more of like which one of these is the richest source of data. It's not again. It is academic. You're totally right, but I think the question is like what. And this I kind of and I go back to this each case. It's more like what is the what leads. Like I get it. It's a basket of and then within that basket there's different emphasis. It's not to say like I'm gonna do all 4 of them, but one of them I'm gonna put real human effort in, and one of them I'm gonna ask ChatGPT. And that doesn't mean that I didn't do research across all of them, but like there are, I would argue a sales-led organization is gonna maybe respond and trust data differently than an engineering, built organization. Or maybe not. Maybe there's different ways to think about that, but maybe that's more the thought process. Linda.
Hey, really quick, I don't know if someone said this, but I feel like when I was reading this, it was like blind success. It feels like it was whimsically, they just kind of were successful. And so I feel like it was right time, right place, and no one really knows how they got there. Why are you laughing? Why?
Like that's my impression of how a company gets built.
Yeah, I know, right?
Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I used to work for a company that an individual man built a company that now does over $5 billion in annual revenue, an individual, and like whenever he's like, I don't know, it just like he's like I work really hard, but like it's still kind of a little bit perplexed as to how his life kind of resulted in what it resulted in. So I don't know.
And what was that company?
Don't worry about it. It was Niagara, but don't
yeah, it's a water company, which is like whimsically they
right.
just kind of made it.
Right place, right time. Gary.
So another experience, there was a public company that a startup I was in got acquired by. It was about $3 billion run rate, and they owned the market that they were in. And the problem was that they equated the market they were in to the technology that they won the market in. And while they had lots of pans in the fire for exploring technologies that could replace the one that they had, the control of the company lay in the hands of the people who ran the legacy business. They owned the revenue, they controlled how the money was used, and they simply could not separate themselves from the physical implementation of the product that they had been selling.
Yeah.
And they ended up the year after I left, they were below book value. They had almost $1 billion in the bank, and nobody would buy them. And Cisco came along, and on the new technology that everybody was moving to, this is storage systems. Cisco came along and took away the whole market.
Business cycle. I guess my last question, then I'll get into asking about next week. Any sense for who should be doing this work? Like, again, I kind of picked my pickup here, or at least what was presented was consultants, internal resources / hiring / and then free resources. This is someplace that I actually have an opinion. I wouldn't hire consultants, and I wouldn't trust the free resources. Like, I would personally say, if you can't do it internally, like, it doesn't matter. But that's my sense of this type of strategic work. I'm wondering if anybody else has a strong opinion on that, or even if maybe you see it kind of a different way on who maybe should be doing this work. Yeah, Todd.
Yeah, the comment just now was about bias, right? And if you don't have the skill set to do it well and to do it relatively objectively, at least leadership should be honest about that.
Sure.
I mean, the fact that you have the C-suite all, touching the elephant in different places, it doesn't bode well for getting an objective result.
It does seem to me that if they didn't see that, if they don't know why their revenue's flattening, and they also don't have the people that can do this, it does seem like they may be a bit screwed. But
yeah,
but that's fair. Yeah. Anybody else with a thought on that? Yeah, Steve.
It seems to me that this is a manufacturing company. That's what their expertise is.
Yes.
It's repetitive manufacturing. It's basically high volume. I don't think it's specialized manufacturing. I think they've been in a niche for a long time. Very, very, very comfortable. And something's got to change. I mean, I doubt that this company comes up with a lot of innovative new products every year.
At least not currently. I think maybe they used to.
Not currently. So basically, they've, this could be like, let's say they're a third-tier supplier in like the automobile industry, and let's say that electric vehicles were taking off a lot faster than they were, and these guys are still, manufacturing parts for internal combustion engines and wondering why, volume, why they're losing capacity.
Sure.
Which is kind of the big picture. But I think a lot of manufacturing companies have gotten into this, this problem in the United States over the last 30 years.
Yeah. Todd, I'll give you the last kind of word here.
Yeah, to that point, it just occurred to me that one strategy that they could take is hiring someone specifically to lead the company in this transition.
Sure.
So that it's kind of the best of both worlds. You hire someone with a particular mindset and skill set that you don't necessarily have, but it is internal, and you get some momentum with the new hire and fresh blood and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Well, option one is what our AI overlords have recommended that we do. And actually 75% of the people that voted agreed with that. So that's, I guess that's where the case ended up. Thank you. That was awesome. At least I enjoyed that, and I got a bunch out of it. I got a bunch of quotes that I wrote down. Michael, I saw you putting stuff in chat. So appreciate that. I'm going to spend just the next couple of minutes trying to get some ideas for the next case. And I know some of the times I come with harebrained ideas or slides or something like that. I've got an area that I don't know about an area, but I'm wondering if there's anything in the news that from a business perspective is interesting fodder that we could dig into from a strategic standpoint. Happy to throw out some things, but I'm wondering if there are news, current events, things in your world. And I'm kind of bringing it up mainly because I know that you hear a lot about like filter bubbles, and I know I see what I see, but I'm kind of wondering what other people are seeing that maybe, you know, perking up on their feeds that may be, you know, interesting or intriguing or you know, not quite understood, or you know, maybe a strategic conversation might be helpful. Anything that spurred in anybody's brain.
The obvious to me is the potential or the, I don't know, the hypothesizing on the AI bubble. And there are a lot of circular payments in that, you know, NVIDIA paying its customers,
Okay.
which tends to get potentially the valuations of all of these companies, you know, buoyed up even more.
Okay.
There are some mechanisms at play that, and I'm no expert in this space at all, but I find it interesting.
Yeah, me neither.
Conversation.
Okay.
Having been burned by the 2000 bubble myself.
Okay. I got AI circular payments, something in there. What else? Any other things that are popping up on your radar that might be interesting or unknown or something like that? Yeah, Pam.
So I was thinking about the concept of like an echo chamber, where when you see it in the news all the time because the people are listening only to the news or the pundits or the stations or whatever that echo what they already believe. And so how often does an echo chamber, we actually talked about that in the case today, where potentially the individuals within this organization are so busy listening to themselves that they don't hear anything outside of it. So how often is an echo chamber mentality occurring among board of directors or C-levels or whatever it might be, where everyone's just busy patting everybody else on the back?
Okay.
And, you know, and the emperor wears no clothes.
Yep. Okay, I like it. Echo chamber. Gary, I see office delinquency rates are rising. You're when you say office, that's like lease, like potential space being leased, I'm assuming.
Yeah, people are abandoning, the rate of abandonment of leases has been rising, and I think it's just it's still the Great Recession, arguably,
Yeah.
and post-COVID.
Okay. Steve, did you have one?
Yeah, mine is really looking at employers and employees, and is employee loyalty, and you know what is the future of employment, you know, just overall in the future and its implications. You know, I mean, I just look at I don't think people go into companies or entities anymore and identify with that so much, and I doubt that anybody works today and thinks about being with having a career for 30 years other than maybe a professional.
Yeah.
So, you know, that along with the empty office space and, you know, what is employment, what is job and labor, and how is that going to impact, you know, everybody? But I think it's a big trend.
Perfect. No, I like that one. Christian, what do you have?
Well, I would like to build on Pam's conversation about the echo chamber, and in some ways, what's going to come out of left field and be really unexpected that we're not talking about now. And to kind of pull that together, somebody said about great customer service. When does the backlash against AI just, come in where nobody wants to talk to a computer anymore and it's all about customer service?
I love it. I hopefully not. Hopefully very soon. That's why.
Can't come soon enough, huh?
Cool. Anything else? That's great. I got that gives me a lot of stuff to run with, to try to package something together here. So I appreciate that. All good?
I've got one just quickly too.
Okay.
Is the wonders that Amazon and these companies do with free delivery and instant delivery. I mean, I ordered something yesterday, and they said, yeah, we'll deliver it between 5 and 7, and it was like 4 hours away, and I'm going, oh, you got to be kidding me. So what is the end result of that? Basically that incredible ability to move parts. What's the implication on retail and the whole market? I mean, it just, to me, it's absolutely amazing, whether it's food or products. And
that might be a bit much for one case study, but
no, but
it's a big topic. No, it's a big, huge topic. But yeah, no, I like it.
I mean, is it only? Are there only going to be another 3 other companies in the world that are going to survive because you need global consolidation in order to do this?
I don't know.
Well, and there's one last thing on my mind, and this may not be a business case study as much as a global financial nightmare. But there's so much going into the S&P 500, right? Investing in index funds, just everybody's trying to diversify. But it's so concentrated now that most of that is going into the top 5 companies. So if this bubble, and a lot of them are part of this bubble. So if this bubble bursts, what's the damage going to be compared to what we've seen in the past with the concentration now and everybody passive investing into the top 5? They're no longer diversifying.
Yeah.
Even though the whole idea was to diversify.
Yeah. No, you got to, hopefully you also own crypto. I don't know.
$100,000.
I don't know what to do with that, but
all right.
Maybe just keep it cash. Matt, sorry.
Yes.
Very quick question. Actually, this question keep bothering me. So Steve Jobs said, the customer don't know what what they want. The customer never know what they're looking for. How do you understand this kind of philosophy? Actually, I think he might be right, because like 1 year ago, nobody believed GPT. Nobody believed AI. But look at right now, maybe 60% believe in AI. If we look back, so say 1 year ago, I say, hey, don't do AI. It's a hallucination. Everything fake. But you miss opportunity.
Yeah.
I think Steve Jobs is right. So at the beginning, the customer never know what they're looking for. So what do you think?
I love it. It's on my list of things for a case study. My only response, and then I'll shut this thing down. My only, personally, since I guess I get to close this thing out, so I get to make a personal statement. I'm unconvinced that I'm a ChatGPT customer because I don't pay for it, and I never will. And so I just think their business model's done. That's my personal opinion. I think AI is a real hard way to make money. I think it's a pennies business. And that's, it doesn't mean you can't have a great business, but I do think it's hard to eke out a lot of profit. Like I said, I guess I will take the last response on that one. Anyway, thank you guys. This call's about to end. That's why I'm trying to close this thing out. Thank you guys so much. This was like a great one. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you did too. If you know other people that would like this would be good for this group, like please spread the word. I'm obviously trying to grow this as much as I can, but I really appreciate it. I thought this was a great conversation. So I hope to see you next week. We'll have one next week. I'm definitely going to take Thanksgiving week off and maybe another one in there, but I'll let you know in the email invites. All right.
Okay. See you at 1,000,000 cups.
I'll see you tomorrow morning. All right. Thank you guys. Take care.
Great case
Thank you.
study.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.